I don't know why I said it like that. I've never said hi like that before in my entire life.
I'm Nayleets.
My name is Vera Wylde.
Hi, I am Zadrixna.
I am Sean Ferrick.
I go by Silas or Cy.
I'm Kate Osborne. I go by Katiosaurus on all of the social media. I got my start on TikTok where I educate and advocate for ADHD and mental health and that kind of thing.
My primary platform is probably TikTok. That's where I have the largest following and interaction with fans. Secondary is probably Twitch.
I'm a writer. I am a YouTube presenter. I write articles primarily about Star Trek.
TikTok, pretty much. It's slowly bleeding into Twitch, but TikTok is still the number one.
I host, oh God, I think I'm up to about 17 podcasts now at this stage.
I am best known on YouTube under the name Vera Wylde and also under Council of Geeks, and I suppose secondarily on TikTok.
My main podcast is You're on Crack, Mate, where we discuss we discuss films each week.
I like to dance. I like to make people laugh. I like to make people feel comfortable in their own bodies.
I co-host on An Englishman and an Irishman Go to the Movies with Ian Whittington.
I make videos on youtube.com and I make music at nickspheres.bandcamp.com, and I've been doing that for years and years and years.
I co-host on the Clone Star podcast with Joseph Hurley.
But I'm on Twitch and I'm a Twitch partner now, and I'm on YouTube and, Instagram and Twitter and all of those. But Katiosaurus across all of the platforms, that's me.
And I co-host on You Set the Tone with Ed Brewster and Sharon Clare, which is the most different of all of them because it's about the TV show ER. I do a lot.
In many ways, sort of creating online content at all was a little bit of a fallback because I'd had initially ambitions of acting and stand-up comedy, and I, had a bunch of auditions for things in Boston and then New York, and nothing ever went anywhere.
So I was working a really crappy retail job at the time, and I was like, I don't want to be a slave to shitty wages because I'm from Texas. So minimum wage here was like $7.25 for the majority of my life.
So I've always been a performer. My background is in theater and stage management and all that stuff.
I would be making more money if I was like working for myself and making my own art and just doing that.
Writing was my first, and still is to a large degree, my main passion. I was lucky enough that I was able to make contact with an online content host who were looking for writers, particularly about Star Trek at the time.
My initial ambitions for myself were always a little bit out of proportion in terms of my creative hopes and dreams. I've learned to temper that.
I took a big risk and quit my job and tried really hard and worked for years and eventually got to a place where I felt like I was pretty viable to live solely off of my art. And that's kind of where I'm at now.
Much like many people, I was in a career I hadn't initially studied for and kind of stumbled my way into. And slightly serendipitous timing as that was coming to an end. And as the world was entering the apocalypse, this came up online, and I've been writing since I was 10 or 11 years old. Probably wrote my best stuff back then, if I'm honest.
And so the pandemic happened and I lost my job. I was working in the performing arts as an entertainment director at a Renaissance festival.
That then evolved into YouTube. That evolved into I've started to use Instagram an awful lot. I discovered eBay sells Star Trek uniforms, and I don't think I've been out of debt since.
And so I lost my job, and my sister was like, well, why don't you get on TikTok? Because you're a performer. You could make funny videos. And I was like, okay.
I started doing rambling rants at the camera about geeky stuff, and that's now mostly that's basically my living now. And sort of in parallel to that, on the Vera Wylde channel, I started doing what was the cross-dressing tips for beginners series, making videos about the things that I had to figure out about myself, because cross-dresser was how I identified for a long time.
When I very first started it, I actually was having postpartum depression, and we had just moved to a new place and we were stuck inside because COVID stuff was starting to happen. And I hated every moment of everything. And so all of a sudden TikTok came across, I don't even remember where, I think on Facebook.
It was purely like selfish, like did not expect it to get popular. It was just like, I want to talk shit about my mom and I want to use my education to talk about it.
I put on something cute and some lipstick, and I did one of the trending dances, and I got a few likes. And I was like, wow, this is kind of nice. So I just started doing that originally just to have something to kind of keep my mind off of everything else that was going on.
I was going through art block really bad because of lockdown. I couldn't journal like I normally would. So it's like, screw it. I'll just record myself talking out loud about this thing and go for it.
And so I started like making videos, and then I started talking about my experience living with ADHD and depression, which was kind of a different turn from like, dance talks or whatever.
And then people really liked it. So that was wild.
As we got more and more into COVID and shutdowns and everything, it just kind of became like an outlet for me to be able to not feel like I was completely trapped and alone. Yeah, so that's like basically the reason why I started it. Depression.
Just being able to talk about geeky media or what's on my mind, and to have a platform that, I feel like I can say something and people will actually hear me, and it's not just shouting into the void anymore.
I did not plan for this. I did not expect this. I thought I was far too old to be an influencer. But now full-time content creating is my job.
Took about a decade to get there, but we got there eventually.
I feel like I've kind of talked about what I can talk about with my mom and understanding her BPD and stuff like that. So most of it has just been like funny jokes or like just little things here and there. And if people like it, cool. And if not, whatever kind of deal. Like I've never really had a plan for my content. It's always just been, I like it, I'll post it kind of deal.
I always kind of thought like, oh, being an influencer must be so easy. Like you just make a video and, your job is done. And then I started working 17-hour days. And then I realized like, oh, it is so much more than I ever thought it was, and it's not just the content, it's the interacting and the comments and the DMs and the messages and the emails and the sponsorships and the, podcast interviews and just like all of the stuff, like the daily admin stuff that goes with it. And so, yeah, I was honestly, I was very shocked at how hard it is to do this for a job. And I love it, but it is very hard work.
So I think it was one of those things where OnlyFans became kind of like I want to almost say like a trend. People started talking about it kind of like on TikTok as like, oh, this forbidden place, and the whole I'm an accountant thing started.
I have a full-time job as an accountant. As an accountant. Nobody asks you questions when you say you're an accountant.
So, it was kind of like this thing that like a lot of the bigger TikTok accounts were taking advantage of, to try to earn a little bit of side income.
I mean, I've always been interested in adult content. I mean, the majority of film that I like is adult content, which isn't to say that it's like pornography specifically, but like pornographic elements, surely, or things like that, which isn't to say that I personally find that titillating, because I'm fairly on the ace spectrum, which is kind of ironic given the circumstances.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I had somewhere in the back of my mind an impulse to do that kind of material, create that kind of content for a while.
I've had a weird life. So I had weird desires when I was younger. And I distinctly remember being in middle school and like telling my friends, and they made fun of me about it really bad. But I was like, what if I grew up and did porn? And they were like, why the hell would you? And I was like, but it seems really fun.
I had never really given it any serious thought before that, for several reasons. Body confidence would have been one of the main reasons. I never felt particularly like I wanted to show that side of me to anyone.
So one time I was at a nightclub, which is not something I traditionally do. I am a very boring person, but for whatever reason, I was dragged to a nightclub, and I was talking to somebody and they were like, "You're very attractive." And I was like, "Thank you."
Back when I lived in Boston, so about over 15 years ago now, I started modeling, with photographers and like art modeling and stuff like that. And as I was getting into that, there was also part of me that wanted to do things more risque than what I was doing.
They were like, did you know that there are people right now that want to give you money for no reason other than the fact that you're transgender and you're very attractive?
And I had this like, I don't know, weird conversation with my husband. And, I was like, I used to be a dom, like professionally. And I kind of miss doing that type of stuff.
But I actually put myself through grad school as a professional dominatrix, which I don't talk about that a lot, because it's like you start talking about that and then people are like, wait, we want to hear those stories, not the ADHD stuff. So I have to like kind of downplay that. But it's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in neurodivergency and kink, is because I've been very active in the kink community for a long time. And so I've always been sort of like adjacent to OnlyFans.
Now, OnlyFans was obviously a site that I knew about, just because it's kind of become the go-to platform for those sorts of that kind of content.
I mentioned Instagram there. That was actually, if you like, a gateway drug, because Instagram is a visual medium as opposed to, say, the written that the website would have been. Particularly, I use Twitter an awful lot as well, which again is mostly written. Whereas Instagram, I had started to go through a bit of a weight loss journey. I had, like everyone, I had discovered the joys of the local takeaway during the lockdown, and I packed on a bit of weight. So I, got a trainer and I started working on that, and I started getting very, very nice and encouraging feedback from that. So that was one aspect of what went, well, hang on. I know that on OnlyFans you can, present yourself in any which way that you like. It can be visual. It can be anything else.
And I was like, well, I understand the possibility of that, but also like I didn't necessarily transition to be hot. I transitioned to be alive. So when I was kind of like considering the possibility, they were like, well, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is it's like Twitter, only you tweet pictures of your butt, and that's about that.
I also perform. I perform burlesque. So I'm used to having an outlet of exposing myself to some degree.
And the first honest shock that I got when I went on is that it is not all the one thing that people think it is. So that sort of, at the time, allayed what I would say were fears of mine. Now, I got over those very, very quickly, but it very, very initially, that first day, I was like, oh, okay, so it can be anything.
So it's been something that I've been wanting to do like kind of my whole life. And it's always been this like, why? No, you can't do that. And I, versus stripping, because I can't dance to save my life. So fuck that one.
Like you might end up liking it. It might make you feel more confident or something like that. So I went home and gave it a shot.
The desire for validation of my sexual being, I had burlesque for that. And when the pandemic happened, there was no burlesque.
I was like, I could probably do something at least flirtatious or something on there, make a tiny bit of like side money. And my husband's like, well, you're a grown-ass woman. You can do what you want. So I went for it. I was like, well, either I'll make a little bit of money or I won't.
Another one is, I would be lying if I said it wasn't financial, because there is, of course, a financial side to OnlyFans. There are many, many, many things online where you can host the same type of content. And if you want to do it for free, which is absolutely valid, you can do it for free. I chose to do OnlyFans because, as I say, there is a financial aspect to it.
And it was during when my first account was like kind of exploding. I think I had about 15,000 followers when I first made it. But then within like 2 weeks after that, I had a video go viral, which was actually a video of me dropping my boob on my husband's forehead. And then I went from 15,000 to 40,000, like in the span of a week and a half or something like that. But then I got banned from TikTok. So it was like just right at the height of it. But I had already started the OnlyFans and I already had people coming in and looking for me and stuff. So
My timing has never been amazing because I did it roughly 7 days before they announced they were stripping all adult content from the site.
oh, we're going to kick off all the sex workers. And this was in August, so it was a little bit ago.
And that was not the best evening I think I've ever had, because there is quite a big psychological decision goes into, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to charge a premium for it. And then to find out 7 days later, well, that was a rather large life decision that seems to be going absolutely nowhere.
I did sign up on there after the whole thing happened with them almost removing the adult material.
The limitations that they had on those kinds of things specifically would absolutely screw over people who are trans, people who looked alternative, people who were overweight, disabled, yada, yada.
Like, I've always known that they were trying to not be a porn site.
The people whose bodies don't fit the general accepted mold of things would have been so severely negatively impacted. And of the sex workers that I know in real life, many of them are disabled, trans, have mental illness that they're struggling with and can't go and do a 9-to-5 kind of situation. Their main primary income comes from doing sex work because it's up to them. There is no boss. They can work around their disabilities. They can work around whatever's going on in their lives. And it gives them the most freedom. And yet, if that had gone through, the people who don't need to schedule their lives around that, the people who can get away with their lewds being as good as porn versus people who need to, to get the same level of following, need to do full frontal or more extreme stuff, would lose everything.
They backpedaled that. I actually did videos on my channel talking about that.
Oh, wait a second. We made a big mistake. Like, no, we're not going to kick the sex workers off.
Yeah, thankfully, I think they realized that something like 98% of the content on OnlyFans would then be leaving OnlyFans, and they quickly changed their minds on that one.
But like that period of time, I lost a ton of people that were like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to a different platform. So, and then trying to like regain those people has been a pain in the butt.
But after that cleared up, I'm like, well, if I'm going to do it, I still feel like I should use the platform that has been the most built up. And like, you can say it's an unstable platform, but they all are. They're all susceptible to the same thing that happens. So it didn't seem any less stable than any other platform.
I don't think it was like being famous on TikTok at all that led me to OnlyFans. It was like really just how my life was going, because right at the beginning of 2020, I ended a 6-year relationship with my ex, who was like straight, cis, monogamous, wasn't really cool with me being just non-monogamous as a default, wasn't really cool with me transitioning to be more masculine. So we ended the relationship and I was like, cool, I'm going to go be a whore. I am so ready to go do this. Like, cause I've wanted to like have a bar hookup or go back into the BDSM scene. Cause I put all of that on hold for the 6 years that I was dating him, because he was so uncomfortable with it.
It was a profession I had already kind of been a part of, on and off.
And then everything shut down. So all I could really do was things at home.
Again, COVID was still being stupid and we were still home all the time.
And then the actual decision itself, I'd been aware of it for a long time. Just it had been in the media. It had been, you can't seem to go near Twitter without seeing, someone has an OnlyFans, or I think kind of like the insane curiosity, if nothing else.
So on reddit.com, there is a very large community of people that just love it when you have a body like mine. And so I guess there's two ways of looking at anything. You can look at it and say, gosh, geez, golly geez, there sure are a lot of guys here who are into this sort of thing. And then there's the other alternative, which is like, wow, look at these very powerful women. And at some point I went, I would like to be a very powerful woman.
There definitely were periods of time, especially before I met my husband, I was on like a website called BBW Chan, right? And it was fun because you would just kind of like post pictures and people would fawn over you. And, that's actually how I ended up having my first son.
it more came from deciding that it would be powerful than deciding that it would be like something that would generate an income for me, if that makes sense. Like I guess I wasn't necessarily focused on the financial aspect.
I started taking all this content and I was putting it on FetLife, and it was like, why am I giving this to you for free?
I mean, the real truth was like, I never made content before. Like that was the difference, was like, as a professional Dom, like I was like meeting clients, you know, and so I would work with them one-on-one. But I definitely didn't have like a platform. I didn't have an audience. There wasn't like pictures and stuff, you know, it was just me performing a service, you know.
Because it was actually very like strenuous to like film a video like that. You have to, it's not just, oh, I'm having fun and I'm having sex and I'm filming it. It's what's the lighting like? What's the sound like? Do I have enough space on my computer to even download this and edit it and touch it up in the way I want to? Like I like got a beefy PC set up to do more video editing and stuff like that. So it's way more than just felt cute and put it on FetLife. Like, no, I did a whole look. I bought a bunch of lingerie and like, yeah, sure, I do it for myself, but at the same time, like, I don't want someone to just see this for free. Like, this was a lot of effort for me.
I personally like am not very sexually attracted, so like sex to me is very frequently kind of absurd and intellectual. So I kind of get more out of enjoying the fact that other people enjoy sexuality than I do myself.
I started drifting towards the idea of OnlyFans, and I think ultimately just having no live audience outlet for so long was kind of what pushed me over the edge.
For quite a while, I was in a relationship where I would not have felt comfortable doing that either.
And it was something I talked to my partner about before doing it. Obviously, you should.
While I obviously believe completely and utterly in bodily autonomy, I would have looked at it as a respect to my partner type of situation.
So something that I thought about with it, like especially with adult content, was like, okay, well, if I'm going to make adult content, then I want it to be something that's like going to spark a lot of that. Like, how are people going to be looking at this in a sort of like absurd way?
When I first kind of started thinking about doing like OnlyFans content, I was just kind of like, I mean, it's valid work. I have the skills necessary in order to, you know, do the work that is expected on that platform.
Even though it was kind of a fallback outlet for this side and aspect of myself, it was still a healthy and a controlled outlet.
I basically always do things to have fun.
Because like without getting into a lot of messy stuff, I have way back in my older history, sort of giving into certain impulses was just, it wasn't good for me. But I felt like structuring it within the framework of making this kind of content for a platform where there are expectations of me from people who are subscribed to it, and approaching it that way as not like an impulsive, ooh, I just need to get this out of my system, but as like a planned thing, and giving it that framework seemed like a really good way to channel the need for a kind of validation I wasn't getting with burlesque, not being there.
So if I don't think that I'm going to have fun, being told like what to do or, whatever, which is basically kind of like what happens right now with OnlyFans. Like people try to tell you what to do and you're like, listen, boy.
Because OnlyFans, I'm sure many people are aware of, OnlyFans does not mean that you suddenly are, throwing open the door to anyone who would like to walk inside. Is you have complete and utter control over whatever type of content you would like to make.
I am not a submissive person for most people, and you try to explain that to them, but like I come across as like so sweet and timid and everything, and I kind of can't seem to shake that image anymore.
I want this to be something where it's more like comfortable and it feels like there's like an actual relationship to it, because I feel like a lot of pornography specifically is very transactional.
You kind of like are like, well, do I really want to deal with this stuff or do I not? And ultimately I decided I would at least give it a shot, see what happens. A little bit of side income is always nice,
People go there to do a specific thing and get a specific thing out of it. They don't necessarily care who the performers are, and they don't necessarily care what the situation is. And I think that this is kind of wrong for art. Like, I think that's kind of bad for art. So I think a better situation is like, well, I think people should perhaps have decent relationships with their performers, like, so they know who the fuck they're talking to or looking at or whatever that is that they're doing.
You know, as much as I love my partner, there's a different kind of need that I have to get more. It's never enough. Oh boy, that doesn't paint a great picture of me, does it? It is what it is.
Like, you get real lonely in lockdown, especially that first year. It was so rough. And so I was like, you know, like trying to meet up with guys and trying to go on these hookups. And I was sending them all these pics and they're like, your pics are like really good. Like, do you have an OnlyFans? And I was like, no, should I? And they're like, yeah, you hella should. And so like from like my multiple gentleman callers saying like, no, you totally should. I was like, I guess I will then. Like,
so like my relationship with adult content, I guess, was just, I always felt like I was on the outside of it because it wasn't something that appealed to me beyond I could look at it in an abstract way, but I never looked at it as a way that I could give people more personal interactions with the same kind of very necessary, grounded human thing that people want.
I think it'd be a cool way of engaging with my audience, but I didn't really know a lot of the ins and outs of it, if that kind of makes sense.
Because people want sexual fulfillment in specific different ways, and providing that in a relationship sort of situation, like where it doesn't feel like it's transactional, makes it, I think, better.
Being cute and being a bottom, I'm great at that. So like, so it's something that I like genuinely always have thought about. And so once everything happened with lockdown and everyone was talking about OnlyFans, I was like, why not? Let's do it.
It was kind of weird. Especially because I had like a very traditional upbringing. And so like a lot of that content, I'm like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, like I said earlier, like one of my really like big interests and one of the things I'm really passionate about is talking about neurodivergency and ADHD in conversation with sex. And not that, you know, like spicy pictures are necessarily associated with sex as a whole, but like my content has always been sort of like sexuality adjacent. And for me, it actually wound up being a really natural fit.
Once I started actually sitting down and thinking about it properly, and thinking about other avenues, you know, you sit there and you have the entire internet at your fingertips. You're like, what can I possibly use to become rich overnight? How can I do this? And that is one of the things that led me to OnlyFans. Now, unfortunately, I do not have the secret to getting rich overnight to reveal this evening. When I do discover it, I will still jealously guard it.
What happens is that people see the ADHD content. They see the mental health content. They see the supportive dad content. And they stop thinking of me as like a whole person. They think of me as like this, like very like Mr. Rogers, like wholesome internet person. And like, yes, I am that. I do really and truly enjoy being nice to people. And I do really enjoy exercising, you know, radical compassion, but also I really like sex and I really like, you know, kink. And so being able to sort of like marry those two worlds, like was actually really important for me because so much of like who I am as a real person was getting sort of like erased. And so it wound up being a really useful tool in that capacity, if that kind of makes any sense.
You know, it's quite funny. I think in many ways what made me finally pull the trigger, because I'd been thinking like in the back of my head maybe about starting on OnlyFans, what actually made me pull the trigger was spite.
Yeah, my account got banned on TikTok. So like one of TikTok's favorite things to do is just allow weaponized mass reporting of their creators, especially like LGBTQ creators. And so I was one of those people. And so over the course of a weekend, it was like 3.5 days all total. They banned my account. And so I had a hashtag go viral that was bring back Katiosaurus. Like people were writing like sea shanties. It was like the weirdest weekend of my life.
Now Katiosaurus did nothing to harm us. Roll me, bully boys, roll.
On TikTok, I had 114,000 followers. And I made a video actually joking about definitely not making an OnlyFans page.
And when they banned my account, I had this like very real moment of like, if I never get my content back, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I had like, during the pandemic, I'd put like all of my eggs in that basket.
And the instant that video went up, I think it's because I had an image, a screenshot of an OnlyFans page, a blank OnlyFans page, but I think the bots instantly caught it, and my entire account was nuked, completely deleted, gone in an instant.
TikTok of like, oh, I'm a size 4 and I can post myself in a bikini, but if you're a size 16 and you post yourself in a bikini, your video gets pulled for being obscene.
I'm on my 3rd TikTok account.
And I appealed it, explaining like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was this touchy. If you look at the thing, you'll see there's nothing that is actually showing anything bad. The page is blank. It's a joke. I won't do it again. But no, they killed the account, then they wouldn't bring it back.
And so I kind of realized like, okay, it's time to like diversify my platform. So like I started a Twitch channel that weekend. I started my YouTube channel that weekend. And that helped. But then a lot of people were like, well, how are you making money? And I said, oh, I'm not making money doing this. And they're like, you should be making money. And so then that was when I kind of was like, well, what if I started an OnlyFans? And then it turned out that people really wanted me to have an OnlyFans. So here we are.
And I kind of snapped a little bit at that. And it's not like it immediately happened after that, but that kind of lit the spark where I'm like, well, if you're going to treat me as if I do this and you're going to punish me like I already am doing this thing, and it's something I kind of have an inclination to do it, I might as well just freaking do it then, because this is bullshit.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that like I can't talk about on TikTok, and it is deeply frustrating because it's like, they'll allow the like super unsafe kink videos to go around because they're like a dance trend with like the popular sound. But then I say, actually, this is horrifically unsafe and not okay, and you shouldn't do it or you will get permanent nerve damage, and TikTok will pull it. And I'm just like, come the fuck on.
Yeah, the spark was lit by spite. That's always a healthy backing for a new business venture or a life decision.
It's honestly not been too bad. Like, I know there's a lot of like mixed opinions about, OnlyFans. But I've really only ever I've been very lucky to only have really good experiences.
Oh man, no, it's been so terrible.
The way the website functions, like it's really easy to just, okay, I made a bunch of content because I was feeling really good one day and I can save it on my phone and post it whenever I want to, so I can just keep having engagement.
So, I mean, okay, it hasn't all been terrible. I'll just start with that because obviously I've made money. So like, who can complain about that, right?
But one of the things that I really appreciate with it is just that it's as intense as I want to make it. So like pretty much it covers my fun money of like, okay, I want to buy this frivolous thing. I'll save up on OnlyFans and then I'll go get that frivolous thing. Like I just bought a bunch of art and stuff like that.
I have had so many issues with OnlyFans. Their overall service sucks. They have like the weirdest things that they don't allow.
The one thing that I really, really like about the platform that a lot of people complain about is how strict they are with verifying who is that? Whose hand is that in that video? Whose bits are in that video? Whose face is that? And having to verify legally, like, no, this is their ID. Here's the release forms. Here's everything for that. Because when I was younger, I got hit by revenge porn really bad. And so I know how traumatic that is.
So they allow like all these like random stuff. And then they're like, no, but this is the line, So a lot of things that SSBBW such as myself would usually do, you're not allowed to do on OnlyFans, and it can get you banned off the platform.
So for me, I'm like, no, great, good. If it means that I do more solo content, okay. But I also know there's no revenge porn going on,
So like face sitting, for instance, apparently is like a huge no. They really don't want you doing that because I didn't know, but apparently that's like illegal in the UK. But I found out via OnlyFans.
And very recently, OnlyFans actually we're going to start partnering together. And I'm going to be making educational content on OF.TV under a different account, like a Safe for Work Katiosaurus account.
My December was hell. Actually, like most of November, they were not allowing me to be paid because my husband's active duty military. So my ID literally says on it that does not expire until 90 days after his time is up, basically, like his contract is over with the military.
Other creators say, oh, I can't even reference my daddy dom in this without him actually having a verified account or doing anything like that. But for me, it's like, no, you really should care about that. You really should try to be as squeaky clean in the eyes of the law as you can when it comes to consent for porn like this.
And so I don't have an ID that actually has like an expiration date that is beyond what it was before. I think it technically expired in like 2020, right? And I've contacted Utah and they're like, no, we won't replace it. Or if we do, it'll take 180 days.
In terms of interaction with OnlyFans, the business, quite frankly, you won't interact with them.
And like I kept going back and forth with OnlyFans, explaining this to them. And I had signed up with the thing like, expired. And they were like, oh, okay, yeah, this is fine. We'll put a note onto your OnlyFans account, yada, yada, except they obviously never did.
And they were like, we're really excited about what you're doing on TikTok, but here's a place where you can like actually say, like the word vulva without getting shadow banned.
OnlyFans as a website is not particularly the most reliable website.
So I didn't get paid for I eventually got it all, but I could not do a payout for over a month and a half.
They've been fairly transphobic in the past, which isn't great. They've also like given people the opportunity to like do this. So that's kind of cool. So it's like kind of a double-edged sword where it's like they hate me, but they exploit me. Damn.
And then all of a sudden they just completely banned me from even logging in. I couldn't get onto my account at all.
Now I've been doing this since August of 2021, and I have yet to hear from them.
And I was like on this really good, I don't know, I had this really good energy for a little while, and I was getting in a bunch of people during that period of time. And of course, that's when all the shit hit the fan.
It's been a pretty positive thing. I'm enjoying it.
I was like doing really good. I had these awesome ideas for the build up to Christmas, and I couldn't do any of them. And I was pissed. And then I was like, I don't know, I guess like my ADHD brain was just like, well, why even fucking do anything anymore, I've
had no issues in terms of, user interface or anything like that.
Yeah, and their customer service just, again, completely and utterly sucks.
Now, so in terms of other users and subscribers on the site, I have to say, I have 99.9999999 positive feedback to give.
And then whenever you're talking to people, because I like to interact with my fans, and not all of them,
but I know there is an idea out there that the people who sign up to view or to subscribe to OnlyFans profiles, that there is a certain reputation that goes with that, and that could not be further from the truth.
The people who have come to my stuff have been incredibly respectful.
On the audience side, it's kind of like a 50-50 thing.
I credit that partially, I think, to having gone out of my way to build very respectful fan bases for Council of Geeks, for Vera Wylde.
Like 99.9% of the people who come to OnlyFans come because they find out about it, like on TikTok or one of my other platforms.
So knowing that people are finding the OnlyFans from those, it's already coming from a pool of decently respectful people for the most part.
So they already kind of know who I am. They kind of already know what my content is. They kind of already know the deal. They know the vibe.
Because I had such an audience like from YouTube, it was kind of a wild card as to what I was going to get as far as an audience goes.
And so for me, I get the most respectful messages on OnlyFans. I get the kindest messages on OnlyFans.
Yes, there's one or two people that are a bit like, okay, boundaries. But I do mean one or two. When we're being misquoted later on, Sean says that hundreds of people, not at all. I mean, one or two people that I've interacted with in the entire time have been,
I have fans who are on my OnlyFans, but they'll also come to my Twitch streams,
Once it was brought to their attention that, look, you're stepping over a boundary here, they immediately went, oh, I'm sorry.
And so like every so often, like I have to set the boundary of like, okay, like I know I get the joke. Like I know that you saw my content from the other platform, but like that's not what we're doing here. You know, like I have to do that sometimes.
I do mention that because I don't want at the same time to give an idea that it is the land of milk and honey, that it is the perfect place. And there's absolutely no chance that anyone could ever be anything other than wonderful.
I had a feeling that I'd probably get a lot of like unwanted sexual attention.
It's real human interaction behind a computer screen, just like anywhere else on the internet.
And probably a lot of unwanted like provocations, like people trying to get me to do things I don't want to do.
There's this hangover idea of the user that is, you know, shady internet cafe, jacket over the head kind of stuff. That is nonsense. That's years and years and years. That's hopefully be in the past now.
I had no idea that it was going to be so extreme, how much that was going to be. Like how that's the one thing that I think if I had a regret, it's probably that I've had to endure so much of that, which is just kind of a thing that comes with popularity on the site. So I think a lot of people on the site are dealing with things like that.
I cannot stress how lovely an awful lot of the interactions have been.
Sometimes it makes me feel a little bit like exploited. sometimes. So polite. And politeness stands for so much. I mean, have manners.
I get a lot of shitty troll messages on TikTok. And so I started a series called Academic Writing Tips with Kate.
If nothing else, I come from a customer service background. It's just nice to be nice, quite frankly.
So basically what I do is I just roast troll messages, but I always like kind of like slip in and I have an OnlyFans.
The enthusiasm for the topic has superseded the research on the topic. Because if you had done a modicum of research, you would know that there's an entire website dedicated to answering this question.
Sometimes I laugh by this. I describe this to my friends going, it's almost funny how normal everyone is, because everyone is normal in their own abnormal way. Everyone is normal.
Whenever you're talking to them and like things that you're not allowed to type, so you have to put in periods because obviously you're not talking about it in a sexual way. You're just talking about like, you know, oh, when I was young. And they're like, no, you're not allowed to say young, but you can say youngest. Like,
I am having to be kind of careful on how I market myself.
Okay, I know that if I start talking about this too much, specifically with my reputation for being weirdly hot, I have a feeling that a lot of people are probably going to sign up for this. So it's just reality and I need to be prepared for it.
Because I'm actually really bad at marketing myself. I'm bad at it and I hate doing it.
Other platforms, not much. I'd say there's probably a bit of tie-in, certainly whether there is tie-in with Twitter and Instagram.
I'm not a huge Instagram, Facebook fan anyway. But like ever since I joined OnlyFans, you know, I advertise there a little bit here and there.
I am trying to be careful of overly tarnishing some of my other stuff. So like there's no link to my OnlyFans on, you know, in the description of my YouTube.
When I first announced that I was going to be doing it, a lot of prominent like left-leaning figures were not supportive of me.
People's perception, I have had a few different views on it.
They were not supportive of it. They said that I would be risking my career and I was like kind of like using my audience as a piggy bank, which I don't think is necessarily true when I'm giving them my boobs.
Mostly positive. One or two probably where I was in my mind a few years ago as to what OnlyFans is or can be.
Because my boobs are fantastic. So if I'm giving them that, then I should probably get $1 or $2. I think that's only fair.
Like actually today I had a meeting. I'm working with a manager now because I'm very fancy. And my manager and I, we were talking and he kind of talked about that. And he said, there are some businesses, there are some people that we work with who like you're a verified Twitch partner, like you have a huge YouTube following, like there are companies who still aren't going to work with you because you have an OnlyFans. It doesn't matter what you post. It doesn't matter what kind of content you're making, whether or not it's safe for work or not for work. The fact that you have an OnlyFans is just going to be enough to stop a company from working with you. And I kind of said to that, I was like, great. Well, if they can pay me the amount of money that I'm making a month on OnlyFans, then I give a shit what they have to think.
Instagram took down one of these pictures that it was literally just like my stomach because people were reporting it because they didn't want to see it.
I have to be super careful on TikTok. You can hint, you can allude.
On TikTok, it sort of becomes this game of like, how creative can you get when like advertising for an OnlyFans?
It wasn't even anything sexual. It wasn't even for OnlyFans, actually. It was just like one of those like, I think my belly looks cute today type of posts. And they took it down and basically like flagged me. And I had to argue it out with them. And then they eventually like restored it.
Even with something like Twitter, I still only want to be so upfront with it just because of just trying to balance its impact on my life and, the other things that I do.
So I've kind of moved more to Twitter. I'm just really bad at doing social media in general.
There's one that sticks out, and because it was the one negative one, and it was one person who said, oh, you have an OnlyFans, ergo you must be a promiscuous person then.
Yeah, so like I had a whole bunch of prominent leftists unfollow me. I probably lost like 300 or 400 followers like the first day that I announced it.
Well, that tells me that you have not used the site, you have not spoken to anybody with the site, you have an idea, and that is your journey. You need to figure that out, and you need to get yourself educated if you choose to. I hope you will.
A lot of people were like, don't do this. That's a stupid thing to do. But oops, I already did it. Haha.
I'm not afraid of being found out because like I kind of have experience with this because I went for a very long time. People didn't know because I wasn't out on Council of Geeks. People didn't know that I was gender fluid and that I was also Vera Wylde. I kept those two things separate. Now, they never really got discovered, but I've already had the period of having to come to terms with the fact that you're going to have to be okay with the fact if people do realize and do make the connections and connect this back to you.
Whatever. Like, whatever. It's kind of like smoking, It's like some people smoke and some people like think, oh God, that person smokes. I have to destroy them. I can't be near them. That person's icky and gross. And some people are like, oh, that person smokes. Whatever.
It's there. If people find it and they like it, that's great. If they find it and it diminishes their opinion of me, then clearly they didn't know me very well in the first place.
I think the people that are kind of like whatever about it in this world are the people you want to hang out with anyway. So the people that unfollowed me, genuinely, go fuck yourself.
But I don't want to make the job too easy for them. So it's not like it's plastered all over my Twitter or anything else, but it doesn't take too much digging.
I absolutely do not hide any of it. Like my link tree for my academic stuff and everything else is always linked. But again, it's because I have experienced revenge porn and blackmail before. So it's like, if I'm completely open about everything, I don't give a fuck what you're going to do about it.
Like, I haven't been secret about the fact that I do burlesque. What I do on OnlyFans is not that far removed from the burlesque that I already do.
Like, there was a time where I was like, had maybe 50 subscribers on there for like $10 a month. And I was like, whoa, okay, great. But I was also doing like constant advertising on like Reddit and Twitter and TikTok and stuff like that. And I was like, that's fun. I don't want that to be my career though. So it's fine. So it's kind of petered off since then.
I don't have much hopes of growing it too much bigger than it already is, but it's a decent income supplement. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy shooting this material. I enjoy putting it up. I enjoy seeing people's reactions and comments on them.
The positive side is that I've gained a very large following. Like more and more people have joined those things. And I think it's probably because they're looking for my OnlyFans stuff, because I don't actually actively advertise it at all anymore. I just stopped. I realized that too many platforms have like too many things against it, and TikTok especially. And I'm like, I don't want to get banned on TikTok again. So those that want to find me will find me.
No, there hasn't been impact on other platforms. I mean, aside from the TikTok thing, like I said, but that was before the OnlyFans even actually existed.
Like my family are aware of what I do. We speak about it openly. It is what is the phrase I always borrow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer? I think it's a Cordelia Chase quote. It's like, please, like shame is something to be proud of.
You know, as much as I talked before about being cautious about sort of tarnishing things or linking it too strongly to some of my other online brands.
We invent shame. Shame, that's nonsense. It's just, what am I doing? Instead of standing in the gym flexing my bicep, I'm just showing something else.
It's not that big a leap from the stuff that's already known and aware of about me. So I'm not super worried even while being aware and somewhat careful about it.
Ask questions. That's the main thing. Like if you're speaking to somebody who has a platform like this, ask questions. Don't make assumptions. I think that's probably the best thing to do.
My current situation is I'm a mom. And so I have very limited time to be able to work on things. I'm also an SSBBW with health problems. So I physically can only do a certain number of sets at a time. Like, so what some creators do is they do like one day a month where they literally make a month's worth of content. I physically cannot do that. I'm just not capable. I'm hoping that someday I will be, but right this second I'm not.
Burnout is not hard to do when it's a hammer and a nail and you do the one thing.
A lot of work goes into this.
It's really hard to also come up with like new content without spending a ton of money because I'm not making a ton of money.
I'm not too worried about burnout. So I came in with a little bit of a cheat.
When I stopped taking testosterone, my libido just disappeared. Like, because it was a constant feeling for so long, and for the testosterone to stop and then that feeling needing to be encouraged, it's like, well, I don't want to put in the effort to encourage it. It used to be just, I'm ready to go.
There really isn't an awful lot of sexual complexity for me. So like, I've never felt that way. So it really comes down to just being attractive and just taking pictures of being attractive.
It's, I'm evening out and it's becoming more normal again. But like for a while there, it's like, I don't want to do that though. And so that's really where my following petered off.
But some days you're like, I think I would like to be really hideously ugly today. And, you don't really want to be attractive every day.
So you remember how I said I'd kind of been thinking about making this kind of content for a long time? I've got years worth of pictures mostly and a little bit of video of stuff that I shot just for myself, because I thought it was fun and cool and kind of sexy, and I shot it because I wanted to shoot it, and I kept it because I liked it.
I was doing the bad thing for the first like 6 months that I had OnlyFans, and I was basically spending everything that was coming in.
People must be aware of the fact that anything that would fall into what I consider what I do for adult content is there is a physical and mental preparation that goes into this, be it a 1-minute clip, be it a 30-minute clip.
And then I spend money on cosplays, and then I don't have the capability of like finishing them in a timely manner. So like then it's just sitting around taking up more space and reminding me how, I don't know, physically disabled I am, I guess. So then that's kind of a demotivator also.
The real truth of it is like, I'm not that creative when it comes to OnlyFans content. And so like sometimes I'm just like, I don't know how many more pictures of my boobs I can take before they start being like uninteresting. You know what I mean?
Because like I have all these ideas, and then either my body or the time that I have or the space that I have is so limited that I'm not able to do the things that I really want to do.
And it is a time-consuming venture. As I feel any content creation should be.
And so that's like been like honestly a struggle, because it's like I post new content every Friday, and sometimes I do like extra content during the week if I'm like, feeling cute that day or whatever.
When I tell people, especially people who are on the platform, that I have daily uploads, they kind of like, wait, what? But then when I explained, like, well, when I first set up the thing, I had up almost 2 months worth of material just that I could just schedule for upload for down the line because I just had it sitting around.
After about a month of taking a picture a day, or a photo set a day, or a video a day, or shit like that, a day, you have to do that if you really want to blow the fuck up. And everybody tells you, oh, it's so simple, you can do that, it's not that hard to publish that much content.
I'm able to shoot several days worth of stuff on the days when I do feel inspired and I am in that mood and I am in that headspace, and I don't have to shoot it every day. Even though there's daily uploads, I don't have to shoot it all the dang time, and I'm not up against a deadline on it, which was also one of the concerns when I first started on it, because I've got all this other crap that I do, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, podcasts, all this stuff. And I'm like, is one more thing on my schedule a really good idea? But I'm like, if I've got this cushion, I can shoot it when I'm legitimately in the mood and have the time.
I still had a couple people who were like, and I think it's their desire for a parasocial relationship, especially with things being so online now, is they were like, hey, that's fine, take as much time as you need, I'll keep subscribing anyway because we care about you. So it wasn't that they just wanted to see my porn, it's that they felt like they had a connection to me.
But then like 3 months down the road, you get, 5 messages a day of either just somebody's dick or somebody being like, hi, I'm wondering if you could pee on this toy and then send me a video of it. And you're like, no, I don't think I'd like to do that.
And I did continue to message them and stuff like that. It was just like, I'd gained weight, I was feeling depressed, going through the breakup, doing the semester and everything. And it's like, I just don't have it in me to post anything right now. And they were like, absolutely, we totally understand. So like, even with like not posting anything for like 3 months, I still had like 20 subscribers who were like, we'll just be here when you're ready, kind of deal. So that's nuts.
I'm not immune from burnout. I hit a period last month where I just kind of got midwinter blues, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm not sure I actually have seasonal effectiveness disorder, but that was kind of the vibe of it. And like, I wasn't feeling myself.
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of issues with like demotivation because of bands, for instance.
And so like over the course of time, your brain starts to kind of fold in on the expectations of it. And you kind of like go, okay. This is about me being hot, right? This is about me taking pictures of my body and doing what I want.
And then like all the stuff going on with OnlyFans. And that's also like whenever you have something set up for like a live, for instance, and then all of a sudden the OnlyFans site just doesn't work on that day. And you're like, well, I specifically got a babysitter so that I could like have this time, and you're screwed because you can't do anything,
Anything you want to get right, you should commit to in the time that you're doing it. And that is true of OnlyFans as it is of any other element of my career that I do.
So at that point, I think that the burnout is almost necessary, because you go through the burnout and then the next stage is, well, I should just do this when I want to. Just like anything sexual. Like imagine that, consent.
But there's like a lot of times where I have these moments of like, in 5 years, am I going to be able to like, confidently be like, and here they are again. Are you not entertained?
Having that cushion has been an incredibly helpful thing, because it means I'm not scrambling to make content because, oh my God, I have nothing to upload tomorrow.
I would sooner deliver nothing than deliver something that I know I could have done better.
But one of the fun things has also come of that is like being able to like challenge myself and be like, okay, like what am I going to do? And so I've started mixing it up a lot. And that I think has also really helped. So like I'll do like spicy audios, or I'll do like POV videos, or I'll do like different things. And sometimes like that's the content that really hits. And that's been really interesting, is that learning like it doesn't have to just be like spicy pictures. Like some of my audio, like my audio only content is actually some of my most popular content on OnlyFans, which is cool because I enjoy making that like the most. So
I kind of designed my entire approach to this to be, I'm not going to say burnout proof, but burnout resistant.
Burnout is real. When you set yourself too many deadlines too close together, you just end up not delivering what it is you want to deliver.
It's funny because a lot of the concerns that came about after Bella Thorne happened And the whole thing where, somebody with a pre-existing platform, came in and dominated the space and didn't respect the space and didn't respect the work being done by other people who were occupying that space. And that was legitimately their living. And like for her, it was for fun.
I do remember that very, very well. Now, this was long before I'd ever thought of setting up myself on OnlyFans. And looking at it since, it's something that can quite easily be exploited.
So I've seen people have opinions about it without really knowing where those opinions came from. And so like I am friends with some people online who did things on like Pornhub and 4Chambers and stuff before, and they've done excellent work. They still do OnlyFans, but I've definitely seen their like critiques of other creators coming from other platforms of being like, well, that was a bad move on their part. They shouldn't advertise it this way. Or if you're going to do that kind of content, you really need to keep in mind what kind of message that tells your subscribers and stuff like that.
I guess I'm one of the weird people that I don't feel that OnlyFans was ever fully intended to be for sex work. I think that they just realized that that was one of the only ways that they were going to make money.
I think that it's a double-sided sort of thing. I don't like to play two sides, but I will in this circumstance, because I think that, no, I do not support somebody being a fucking millionaire or whatever. And, I don't think that exploiting the shit out of your audience in that level of a way is necessarily good.
I don't necessarily think she did anything wrong. I think she exposed something in the platform that can be easily exploited. And they then capped the level of income that one can make because of that, which I don't agree with. I think you should be able to make as much as you want to make.
They are not really for sex workers. So I guess that's kind of like where I am with it. I think I've always thought that they were going to eventually kick sex workers off. And I still think that they probably will eventually. I just don't think that they give enough credit to how much money we're making them, even the small accounts. So, but they're really trying to get like big names, really big names to get onto the platform.
When I joined OnlyFans, I brought a whole lot of new people who liked this kind of stuff, but were maybe nervous to sign up for it just for, whatever. And they felt comfortable doing it for me. So it's like, I can't punish those people for having sexuality, right? Like, I can't punish those people for wanting to support someone with sexuality with which they're comfortable.
I actually, on the original TikTok account, I did a video where I actually talked about the reasons why I wouldn't start an OnlyFans. And one of the main reasons that I cited was I was worried that I wouldn't do it well.
So I don't really necessarily feel like I siphoned much attention off of anybody else, as much as like I feel like I brought attention to the website when I did it.
Treating it like a hobby and doing it for kicks was something that I was afraid of either doing or looking like it was what I was doing.
There's so many other platforms that are specifically made for sex work. So like Fansly has always been, very pro sex work and things like that, but they're just a much lesser known platform.
I think the reality here is that sex work is work. And so if it's going to be work, if it's work for somebody and they're working, then, don't necessarily trash their work, So what I mean is like, I don't have much of a following, and like, maybe, yes, I engaged the fact that I was a content creator beforehand, like, to have a minor following, but like, it's work and it's hard and it's not easy, and it does trigger my dysphoria, and it does make my life difficult sometimes, and it is a huge time commitment, and it does not pay me that well, like, comparatively.
Sex work, you are the product. You are also, for a lot of the time, your own marketing manager. You are your own advertising team. You are your own PR person. You are your own booking agent. Now, of course, there are those who have, they are fortunate enough to have people working with them and helping them in that respect. But for all intents and purposes, you are a business owner.
So I guess I don't really have any like strong feelings. I don't feel like people are necessarily quote unquote encroaching on a sex worker's platform, because again, I don't feel like OnlyFans was ever supposed to be a sex worker platform. So
I understand the fear. I do. I understand the fear. See, I would be one of the people who are using this more or less as a hobby, a lucrative hobby. And I would not like the idea that anything I'm doing is directly damaging somebody else's career.
I'm not immune from that criticism. I mean, I've openly admitted this is an outlet for me. And if some people feel that that makes my presence disrespectful to people for whom this is actually their living, I don't really have an argument in my defense.
I do consider, because like I have had people, like I think the people who've given me this feedback, I think we're thinking on the same line of like, they've asked me, well, is your OnlyFans like just what, like a lewd Instagram, or like what's going on there? And I put it on my thing like, no, it's full frontal. I do BDSM stuff. It's mostly solo, but it's still BDSM. And I do a bunch of other stuff like that. And I let people know like, no, you're going to see everything. And like, it's going to be really graphic as much as OnlyFans allows. Which is also a whole other thing, but that's fine.
If anything, I think that this is about the website, and this is about the tools that people are given. I think that it's a little fucky-wucky for millionaires to be able to just grab tools that any old person can use and just make millions off of it.
All I can say is that I've done my best to be very clear, like in my bio and in my description, about what it is I am here to do. And so people have realistic expectations before they even give me money.
But at the same time, like, I'm a content creator, and this is a platform for content creation, and I'm going to create content on that website for content creation. And as a content creator, people like that I do that. So I should probably create content.
Having said that, what I said about being your own marketing manager, being your own advertising manager, there is always room for a bit of competition in the market.
I took more of a personal hit, I think, to my namesake and the way that people look at me than maybe a lot of people realize.
Really and truly, like, since I was a kid, since I was 7 years old, the thing that I've wanted most in the entire world is to be on Sesame Street. I desperately want to be like, I have a Muppet version of myself. Like, that is how much I want to be on Sesame Street. And sometimes I worry about that. Sometimes I worry about like the day where, I get quote unquote famous enough to, be considered. And some producer says, oh, well, she has an OnlyFans. Like, we can't really put her on Sesame Street. You know what I mean? And that's devastating.
I do want to like give the small bit of advice to people that if you are not really sure of yourself, you should not do OnlyFans.
Sex work is real work, first off. Like, it's just valid. But even more than that, like, especially for me and wanting to educate and wanting to advocate, this money is what allows me to do it. I financed my tour this year solely off of money that I made on OnlyFans. OnlyFans is paying my bills. It is how I'm able to get by. Like I said earlier, I lost my job in the pandemic.
And I must stress that this is not my livelihood. So like, I respect that there are people to whom this is an awful lot more work than I've even described.
And so I get really frustrated by the short-sightedness of these businesses where they're like, we won't touch her because she has an OnlyFans. And I'm like, yeah, but the reason why I'm able to content create and work with you in the first place is because I worked my ass off to build a platform where I'm making enough money to sustain myself as a full-time content creator. So I guess I won't use your keyboards.
I think that there's this kind of temptation for people to think that being on OnlyFans means making porn, and making porn means being a prostitute, because people are very smart. And so they draw this line. Not so much.
I post on OnlyFans because I truly believe that everybody should have access to sex ed, especially neurodivergent people. And there are so many considerations and things that we don't talk about in like the common sort of like sex ed vernacular that are hugely important for neurodivergent people to know and understand about themselves and about their partners.
OnlyFans in my heart is like the most innocent way of interacting with my own body, because it's delicate to me. I don't have to treat myself rough if I don't want to, and I'm pretty blatantly tired of doing that. Like if I've ever had to do that, that's just not worth it. And I think that's the great thing about it, right?
So sometimes I think, did I choose to do this at the exact wrong time in Earth's history? Which is when a global pandemic is ripping through populations, did I decide to set up an OnlyFans? It's like, and yep, that's possibly, in hindsight, I did not choose the best time in history to do this.
So I've, been in the kink community. I got really into it during COVID as safely as I could, obviously. But
if one wants to collaborate, one must do the normal tests and preparations and safeguards anyway, as you would with any sexual encounter. But also now you must make sure that you're not bringing COVID into your house.
I have done like group play before. I've done gangbangs before. I've done like the most extreme thing I do is CNC, but it's one that I'm the most comfortable with.
And if there are those who are meeting multiple partners, either simultaneously or over the space of a few days, you must be careful as you would with anyone else. And that has directly impacted some of the plans that I did have for the channel.
While it's not total freedom, there's restrictions for what you can and can't upload and all that sort of stuff.
I would love to do that kind of content there. I don't think they'd allow that.
It encourages you to be creative. It encourages you to think outside the box. Like the first thinking outside the box was setting up an OnlyFans.
I think the amount of control it grants people who want to do this work, whether it is their living or if it's something, an outlet and a part of themselves that they want to explore, I think the amount of control that it grants them is good.
Once you step over a line or a decision, you go, Grant, I'm here now. It's like, no. Because remember, there's 20,000 people standing right behind you as well, who are looking to occupy the exact same space that you are standing in.
And so this idea that I'm somehow less than or bad or whatever because I make my money on a platform where sex work is paying the bills for many of these people, it really upsets me.
We should all enjoy the fact that we now have the ability to just do it when we want to, how we want to, instead of it being like this absolutely dystopian nightmare. Because for a lot of content creators on OnlyFans, it is kind of a dystopian nightmare, the things they do on there, in the same way that it is on Twitch and the same way that it is on YouTube. So it's like every platform has its problems.
I know several women specifically that joined OnlyFans and they were not ready to get the types of followers that they did, and it ended up spiraling them, so I feel like people need to do a little bit more research to understand how awful people can be, especially because when it comes to pretty much any sex work, in most cases you're viewed as an object, and not everybody. There will be people who are wonderful and who treat you like a goddess and will literally lick your toes if you ask them to,
One of the things that I actually really would love to talk about is how many messages I get from people who go, you are the first time that I've seen someone who looks like me. And that makes me feel sexy, or that makes me feel empowered, or that makes me feel better about myself.
But then there's going to be other people who will come in and immediately try to demean you. And you need to be able to be ready for that and to know how you're going to react to it.
The same way that I get so many messages from people that are like, hey, I really like your OnlyFans content, but I'm really having trouble, pleasing my partner. What do I do?
I personally, I know what turns me on and doesn't turn me on. And if it doesn't turn me on, I don't allow it. So that's pretty straightforward for me. But I also have a background in being a dom. So it's a little bit easier for me to set those tight boundaries.
It's not perfect. Obviously, some people have more negative experiences either with the site itself or with some of the users on it.
Like, I can't do the more extreme impact play stuff that I do because OnlyFans would be like, no, that looks like someone's just beating you and not for the purpose of sex, kind of deal. And so for some people I know, they did some content where they're like, well, I don't understand why I can't do this content or that content. And it's like, it's because for the people who are consuming that content, and also with any kind of porn, is like, what kind of message does that send the people who are consuming this media? What do they think actually happens versus, hey, we planned this out, we made meetings, we met for coffee, we had explicit consent guidelines and stuff like that, safety, aftercare, sexual safety, all that stuff. The person consuming the video has no idea what goes into that. And so it gives them a very different message. And so the most of the critiques I saw were from people in the kink community being like, you got to be careful doing that kind of content and not having some sort of disclaimer within the text of like, hey, by the way, don't forget, this is acting, this is planned, this was consensual, kind of deal. So that, from my end, especially with how much pretty much like all of my internet friends are heavily involved in kink, that's where it comes from.
And so OnlyFans has become a place where, just by virtue of my existing in that space, it is educational. It is meaningful in some ways. And I think that there's such a prejudice to that kind of content. You know, it's like, oh my gosh, like she shows her breasts. And I'm like, yeah, but my boobs look different than other people's boobs. And seeing those normalizes that, and it normalizes different body types, and it normalizes like the way that I represent, you know, my gender and like how I explore, you know, ideas about gender and that kind of thing.
I think the main thing anyone who's thinking about it needs to be careful of is more the digital footprint you're leaving.
What I have learned from having OnlyFans, but also having other platforms as well, is that never stagnate, always push yourself, always push yourself to do something new, and don't feel bad if it doesn't work.
Because no matter what you do, eventually somebody will probably link it back to you, or they always have the ability to. Somebody at some point will. So never go into it thinking, well, no one will find out.
A lot of the judgments that people make about people using OnlyFans are really, really shallow, and maybe be a little bit more open-minded.
And then the other thing is that you can't let it completely consume you.
No one gets it right the first time around. I didn't. I'm still not getting it right, but I'm still getting some things right.
I feel like when you pay attention to the numbers too much, then you start applying a worth of yourself to those numbers. Like, it doesn't work that way.
OnlyFans has become really meaningful to me in that way. And it's giving me a space, and it's given me the ability to say, like, I might be conventionally overweight, or I might hate my ass, but there are people, quantifiably, there's 1,700 people in the world who are willing to pay $10 a month to look at it. And that's something, right?
There is a temptation, I think, to be weary with one's body as well, which is to say, if you're going to be going on and marketing yourself out there, you have to open yourself up to the possibility that this could lead to like a lot of solicitation and problems with that. And so I get a lot of solicitation.
Yeah, so just be cautious if you're going to be getting into it. Not that you shouldn't try it.
A lot of solicitation.
If you like get a little bit upset when people say something mean on TikTok, like, it will be 100 times worse on OnlyFans.
A lot. And it's funny because OnlyFans has a thing where it's like, you can't do that, but they do anyway. And if I did it, I would be in trouble, obviously, but they can just come and do that. And that sucks.
There will always be that one person that you're just like, well, why did you even subscribe then? So
people don't understand that there's a big wall between, like, I am watching this performer and I do know them, and I do have like a good relationship with this performer as a entity with which I can interact with sexually, but that doesn't necessarily mean I get to have sex with them.
We're all aware of that, right? Like,
I'm getting out of it what I wanted. I'm soothing that part of myself that needs that kind of attention. And I'm doing it in a way that feels controlled and, to me at least, feels healthy. And I make a little money doing it on the side, which is no bad thing.
There's so much good that I think comes out of content that is maybe based in sexuality, or, you know, like showing a little bit more skin than you can on YouTube or TikTok. But it's become really important to me, and I don't really have a lot of regrets. I think my one regret is, like, if someday I don't get on Sesame Street, I will be really sad. But other than that, it's been pretty much zero regrets.
I think there's a parasocial nightmare on OnlyFans, but people have not yet really figured out how bad it is. And you can't figure out how bad it is until you get to a certain point of success. But in that way, I think that the website needs to be held a lot higher responsibility for ensuring the safety of its performers.
It's definitely not something I regret doing, and I'm still enjoying it.
And also, to anyone who is thinking of starting an OnlyFans, now, while, yes, I will not be naive, a huge percentage, as in the lion's share percentage of OnlyFans, is adult content. That is not all that is on the platform, and never feel any worry or inhibitions about signing up because you think someone's going to judge you. People will always judge you. They'll always find a reason. Leave them at it. You know, we can't change other people's perception, much as we would like to sometimes. Just, it's going to sound very cliche, and I'm sorry in advance, but you really only have the one life to live. Just go out and live it, will you?
I don't know. I kind of hope that everyone could eventually have a fuck it attitude like I do. So